Welcome back, everyone, to the Champion 101 series for Marvel Contest of Champions. Today, we are actually skipping a character, and that's because I can't fully break down or give my opinion on the character at hand, that being Deadpool, as he is locked behind a paywall when you very first download the game, and you have a very limited time where you are able to purchase said character, and if you play the game basically free to play like I tend to, then you're not interested in making that sort of a purchase, and by the time you do want to consider it, there's not a retroactive way to go back and access Deadpool, which is unfortunate, but maybe we'll circle back around to him, or I'll start up an alt account that I will then purchase the character at that point in time. So if that is something you're interested in seeing my thoughts on or my breakdown on, I'd be willing and open to discussing Deadpool and his versatility. I just feel like I'm not currently in a position where I'm able to do so. But we do have another super awesome character on the list, and that is Gamora. And unlike the other characters that we've looked at so far in this series, Gamora has recently been revamped and made significantly better than what she was in her original iteration to the game. And there's a lot to go over with this character, and I don't really feel like there are a whole lot of tweaks that I would make to her character as she currently is, but any of those instances that I do have, we can discuss those as we get into the way that Gamora works as a character. Also, just as a brief afterward, there's a really awesome fight at the end of this video where I take on the Act 4 Chapter 3.6 end boss Venom, I believe that's what it is. The one that you can just go right up to. I got a really awesome kill on him using my 4-star rank 1 Gamora. So if you want to see how well that fight went for me, make sure that you stick around for that fight in particular. So Gamora has a lot of really interesting things that have been added to her character within the past year and a half or so. And so to start out, let's just look at the base function of the character before dropping in and looking a little bit more at her signature ability and what that does for her. So we have the light attack. So any light attack in Gamora's combo has a 30% chance to give her a fury buff, which will increase her attack by a certain amount for a 9-second duration. And that's always really good to see. You do see a lot of these cosmic characters with a heavy reliance on those types of buffs, but as long as you're actively avoiding taking on fights with mystic type characters, you really don't have a whole lot to be terribly concerned about. On her medium attack, she has a similar characteristic, but instead of being a fury buff, she will gain a cruelty buff, increasing her critical damage rating by a certain amount, again for a 9-second duration. And both of these buffs have an increased 5% duration for every 5 seconds that the fight drags on, up to a 60% increase. So if you do the math on that, you will have a maximum potency or duration on those buffs after the fight has lasted for a minute or longer, which is a really awesome thing to see with these types of buffs and increases. And that means that those buffs will last, ultimately they can last up to 14.5 seconds or thereabout on Gamora, which is a really nice duration on any of those buffs, especially when you take into consideration the fact that on her heavy attacks, she will refresh the duration of any of those buffs that she has. Specifically, the cruelty and fury buffs will be refreshed on hitting the heavy attack. So if you run 1 or 2 of your combos and then get a parry off and then recycle that heavy attack, you will be in a really good spot in terms of ramping up your damage output. Those are the base items of Gamora's abilities, and now we do need to transition over and talk a little bit more about her special attacks. Gamora's special attacks are not the craziest things in the world on their own, though they are somewhat decent, especially from a new player standpoint, they're somewhat decent. The special attack 1 has a 100% chance to have a critical hit, and it also has a 100% chance to inflict bleed, which deals a certain amount of bleed damage for a 5-second period. The Special 2 attack also has that 100% critical chance rate, and this has an 80% chance to inflict an armor break debuff, and that is for each of the 2 hits that are on that Special 2, and that will remove armor buffs unless they have an immunity like Colossus does. And that reduces the armor rating by a certain amount for 14 seconds. So quite a longer time frame of damage vulnerability on your opponent by the time that you end up detonating that Special 2 attack. That's going to last you for 3 or 4 combos, potentially more if you're playing a little more aggressively. And on the Special 3, you do have a 100% chance to gain a True Strike buff for an 11-second time frame, which allows Gamora to ignore armor resistances, auto block, and evade effects. The trouble is, with as short of a duration as 11 seconds is, you're really never going to benefit from detonating your Special 3 attack. I think that it would be interesting if the True Strike were also subject to that refresh on the heavy attack, much like her other buffs. That would just make using the Special 3 ability to gain that True Strike a little bit more worth it, in my opinion. And it's not like we haven't seen those types of refreshes on a True Strike type ability previously, and with other characters that are much more powerful than what Gamora could be even with that change, such as Aegon and Proxima Midnight, Corvus, a bunch of those others. You're really not overselling the character by adding that feature to the heavy attack refresh mechanic, or at least in my opinion you wouldn't. Now when you activate Gamora's signature ability by unlocking the character more than once, she does gain a couple of additional perks. She will begin each fight with a Godslayer Strike charge, and every time you activate a special attack, if you have it at max level, it will always detonate if that charge is active. But if you do not have her signature at that max availability, you will have a reduced chance of that Godslayer Strike activating on that attack. But the benefit from that is you do have some increased benefits on the different special abilities when activating with that Godslayer Strike active. On the Special 1, you have an additional 600% critical damage multiplier, which is phenomenal, especially since you always will get a critical hit with the Special 1 and Special 2 attacks. The Special 2's benefit from consuming the Godslayer Strike charge is the armor break debuffs have an additional 65% potency and a 100% duration increase, and also a benefit from a 150% ability accuracy on that attack. So if you consume the Godslayer buff on a Special 2 attack, you will get increased duration on those armor breaks, and you will always get 2 armor breaks instead of dealing with the 80% duration activation that comes coupled with that ability. And on the Special 3, if that Godslayer Strike is available, you would inflict a shock debuff, which will inflict a certain amount of damage for a 10-second period. But if the opponent is a robot or an android character, then it will deal double that amount of damage over that same 10-second time frame. The drawback with the Godslayer Strike is once you activate one of Gamora's attacks, it does have a cooldown period, and it's fairly lengthy. At about half potency, it's going to take 35 seconds to recharge, and of course that time frame, it does decrease the higher and higher you take her signature ability, or the higher you're able to get Gamora's signature ability in particular. Really, with what we've looked at, the only real complaint that I have is on that Special 3, you'd really love to see the refresh ability applied to the true buff or the True Strike buff mechanic, similar to how it works with her Cruelty and Fury buffs. But overall, I do feel like the revamp that was done to Gamora was very notable and worthwhile. But what do you think? Do you think that there's more that could be done to make this character a little more relevant? Do you think that she's fine where she is, or do you think that she should be reverted back to the way that she was? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed today's video, make sure that you leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe for daily variety content. And be sure to be on the lookout for my Twitter, which will be coming here in the next couple of days as soon as we hit that 750 subscriber milestone. Until then, thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.